So, how can you feel hopeful? How can you stop feeling hopeless in a seemingly hopeless situation? We all go through things in life where we get hurt or we lose something or somebody or we're abused or something happens to us. We go through some sort of pain or whatever the case, whatever it is. It's a diagnosis from the doctor that we have maybe some sort of terminal illness. Whatever the case, I want to share a quick tip with you about how to stop feeling hopeless in a hopeless situation. As a combat wounded veteran from the war in Afghanistan, when I was attacked by a suicide bomber, I had 14 months at a medical center to think about this and to try to figure it out on my own. And in that time, and even since then, one thing I've learned is I learned something from a guy. It was really amazing what he said. And the guy's name is Viktor Frankl. He has a great book called Man's Search for Meaning. He's since passed on. But Viktor Frankl was a prisoner of war in a Nazi concentration camp. And when people asked him, how did he stay sane and how did he make it through that mentally when other people didn't? One of the things he said was really profound. He said, it was just chance that he didn't make it out of there. I mean, that his number didn't get called and he didn't get sent to a gas chamber for extermination like so many others did. He ended up making it out alive. But while he was in the concentration camp, while he was in the hopeless place, here's one thing he said. He said while he was in there, in the worst place imaginable, in a Nazi concentration camp, he said he used to think about what it will be like when this war is over and he's free. And he used to visualize, he used to think about what it's going to be like to go into universities, because he was a psychiatrist. He used to think about what it would be like to go into universities and teach people on the psychology of concentration camps. Wow. He had a plan in his mind. He was thinking, when I get out of this, even though there was no promise and the odds of him getting out of there are pretty slim, and he did. But even while in that, he had this vision of what he was going to do when he got out of it. And it was a bigger thing than him. He was going to get out of there and teach people in universities and psychologists and students about the psychology of a concentration camp through his own personal experience. Well, guess what? He survived. And guess what he did? He wrote a book, or I think more than one, but he went into colleges and universities and all over the world and spoke about the psychology of concentration camps and how it affects people. So this guy was in what I think you and I could agree, one of the most hopeless, absolutely hopeless situations. Yet he had a vision for his future that was bigger than him. He was hopeful for something. So I want to ask you, what is it in your life? I know in my life, once I had the opportunity to speak after I got injured and burned up by that suicide bomber with all the head injuries and everything else, I got to speak one time about 6 months after my injury, and I saw how it impacted people. And I was still in recovery, by the way. This was only 5 or 6 months after my injury. And I had a vision for the future that I want to share my story. I want to share the lessons I've learned that are helping me to win this battle that can help other people win their own battles. Well, that was 11 years ago. And now, what do? It just turns out I write books and I speak. I write books on human resilience. I speak on the topic of human resilience all over the world to all kinds of audiences. It wasn't anything I really actually ever planned on doing, but in my mind I thought, wouldn't it be nice to be able to do that? I think maybe that's possible. And every time I did it, it became more and more possible. So whether it's Viktor Frankl, whether it's me, whether it's you, I don't know what you're going through right now, but get a vision of what's possible in the future. Get a vision of what you hope for. That's called faith, by the way. It's these things unseen that you can't touch that you hope for. That's what it is. So what is it in your life? It's all right to admit where you are. I mean, you have to. But also, in being realistic, you also have to think, what's possible? What's possible? What do I want to do with this? What am I going to do with this once I get through? Get a vision of what's possible and believe it's possible. And start focusing on that instead of your current situation, just like Viktor Frankl did.